بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Dear brother and sister, welcome to our program, our real life program. Today we're going to share a topic, most interesting topic, which is the 5th July 1962, the Independence Day, after 58 years. We did celebrate that day just last week. And today we need to talk about that, which is a day of freedom, a day of having our rights, a day that people, our nation, suffered and fight for it. For this reason, I'm very happy and pleased to introduce my guest, starting from Dr. Belghit Mohamed. You're welcome.
Welcome, brother. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be in this program with our dear professors.
Thanks
and yourself,
Thanks a lot
Brother Samir,
for your coming. Mr. Samir Shani, Dr. Samir Shani, welcome to the our new subject.
Thank you for having me with you.
Mr. our Professor Rashid Mimouni as well. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
As we said, the Independence Day has been after the fight, has been after the suffering of our people, our nations. All are Julian, without exceptions. Today, when we talk about freedom, we're talking about the rights. We're talking about we are strong enough to manage our nation, to manage ourselves, to be apt to live on our own without any dependence. I will talk to Professor Mimouni Rashid, and can you say about that? I mean, can you add for us what people are missing?
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In fact, the subject, the theme of today is very judicious, is very relevant, and it may be a bit polemical. We have to raise out the doubts about it. We are in the month of the historical celebration, July the 5th, Day of the Independence, which culminated this year in an unprecedented historical official event that was the emotional repatriation, return of the skulls and bones of the heads of the popular resistance decapitated, beheaded, and transferred to France 170 years ago. استرجاع رفات وجماجم أبطال المقاومة الوطنية الشعبية ضد الاستعمار قبل 170 سنة في احتفال رسمي أثار مشاعر الاعتزاز والعرفان في مشهد مؤثر في الجزائر. Alors, هنايا we are mingling two facts. The fact is about, we are going to speak about the relation between nationalism and Islam. It is a very sensitive issue because there is sometimes confusion. Some people say that they are opposite, and in fact they are not opposite. We are going to delineate the elements that prove that they are not opposite. The confusion raised, nationalism appeared in Europe in the 17th, 18th century when the great empires were dislocated. And the nationalism at that time, they represented the nation state that appeared instead of empires, was relating a territory, a people, and territorial people on the managing system, a political system. Then we inherited this in Algeria later, and in the same time this nationalism appeared in our country. But why the confusion in the Islamic world? Because mainly in the eastern part of the Muslim Arab countries, nationalism appeared as a movement in the 19th century, which raised by intellectuals, raised by different segments of societies, and it fought the only Khilafah that was existing at that time. Is the Ottoman Empire. Then they operated the Arab Revolution, operated revolt at that time, operated a split between nationalism and Islam, a sort of but in the Maghreb countries, and particularly in Algeria, nationalism stemmed from the necessity to fight colonization and to return the sovereignty to the Algerian society. It's completely different. Then we say that there is a similarity of action, and it was cemented through the hardships that the Algerian people suffered throughout history, and I think that our professors can go along this way.
Well, talking about nationalism, you know, the meaning of nationalism is linked to or attached to the loving your country, loving your place, loving your nations. And nationalism is when you do some things and you defend by it your country or your nations. For that reason, you were talking about nationalism. You know, last week we were talking about brotherhood, and we already mentioned that what happens in our Independence Day means fighting and etc. against colonialism. We did it by the brotherhood, because all the Algerians, they were all together, and this is when you are in crisis, you have to unify yourself with the others, you have to reunite to each other, you have to get the force, and when you get the force, you can make people away from your country, from your place. For that reason, when we talk about nationalism, we need to talk about citizenship of the people, citizenship of our people, our Algerian people. Dr. Hashani, what can we say in that subject of the nationalism?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let me just start by saying that it would be preposterous to think that we could define all these concepts in this short lapse of time. But I would pick up on what you said before. And you said that one word you said that during the war of liberation or our revolution within our indented, the main word was, you said, unified, union. That was, you put it with what you say, brotherhood and love of the other, because we were one. But this oneness that allowed us, alhamdulillah, to acquire our independence, no matter what people say, was fought. And the colonialism did everything to break that texture that made the Algerian nation. And I would like just to insist that up to now some people are still doubting the existence of the Algerian nation, which existed. My brother and Professor Mimouni said that in 17th, 18th century the idea of state, nation state was not exactly, I mean, in the 16th, 17th centuries, the countries in Europe, which was at that time the highest level, they did not have countries as we know it now. The idea has been going up until now we have countries and so on.
Well, so, I think no one can, after having our independence, no one can doubt about it, because when we say the nations and when we talk about citizenship, and when we talk already about the unify of the people and the brotherhood of the Mujahideen that time, I think even if anyone doubt about it, inside his heart he's not doubting, but he's just showing
I'm
that,
saying some people are saying that. I'm not. We do know. And what I said, you said unifying the mujahideen. When you say the word mujahid has a weight. We don't say fighters,
course,
but mujahid, the one who is mujahid, fight for his religion.
Yeah.
Okay. And at that time, we could say, for example, in 950, بلغين ابن زيري من نادر صنهاجي founded الجزائر بن ابن صغنة. 950 in the 10th century. It was not perhaps a country as we know it now, but it was an organization of a state of some sort. But the French colonization, it did everything during 132 years to destroy this texture in every way it could. It would be too long to say it, but religiously, people perhaps may not know that Kachawa Mosque, when the French entered, was a mosque. They turned it into a stable. When they had animals inside. That was a way how to put down Islam, which is and always will be the cement that we'll get back to that. Languages, I mean, up to now we have all this problem about languages and this speak this, and even people know there was some books that taught Arabic. The Arabic, not the academic Arabic, but the Arabic that's not
the dialect
spoken. Dialect, exactly. Tradition, also the tradition, all tradition we have what tried to broken. Bring in settlers. This is what a settling. Algeria in the 19th century was a settlers land. People from Malta, from all people who were in the south of France, and so on and so on. Land expropriation. Everybody knows the Senatus Consul, which was simply taking land from people which were there for centuries and giving it to somebody who came from Alsace or from Malta or from Italy, and that was the Senatus Consul and the Varnier law. They did simply this to break this unity, which was here. That also change of name, and this is really like I was speaking with my brother Rashid. All this great, and he said something that gave me goosebumps. He said in the Mu'tar, when we saw those on TV that these skulls and bones were repatriated, we felt very, very, very proud, because Alhamdulillah, these people who were decapitated and just thrown like I don't know what, they come back. Look how is the bad way that the French colonization, I don't just say France, but French colonization did. Sheikh Boubaghla, Sheikh Bouhmara, which is putting that person as belonging to a donkey or a jackass or something like that. While we see Sheikh Boubaghla, his real name is Muhammad al-Amjad bin Abd al-Malik al-Idrisi al-Hilali. See, instead of calling him a name that is his proper name, his ancestors, he becomes somebody who is riding a donkey.
And that was on purpose, because
on purpose, exactly.
On that time, on that time, all the colonialists everywhere, they changed the name to spread the race of that nations. Because when you spread in that race, etc., you will make the unify will make it weak.
Not weak, no. That is putting down the name. Putting down the name. We have names now that are unpronounceable. Exactly. Bouhmara, Boubaghla, which means that person does not belong to a tribe, does not belong to a country, does not belong to a religion. But the guy, perhaps people don't understand Arabic. Ahmar is the donkey. That means the guy who was a great fighter, a mujahid, who fought the colonialism, becomes somebody who brought with him a donkey. That is, that's what I said. I want to say about after my brother Simon said, this is unification. The French colonization did everything, and it has unfortunately gotten to its point, it did everything to break this unity that was before the colonization, that was the Algerian society.
Well, I think what you already said, thanks a lot for what you already analyzed and said. Talking about the nationalism means we're talking about some things that we've got feeling on it. Means talking about some things by heart. Talking about something which is attached to the land. Because when we talk about that, we need to talk about the homeland. Every one of us has his homeland. He has to settle down on that. And when anyone want to take it off from you, you have to, to resist, to fight, and resist, to stay there. For that, Mr. or Dr. Belghit Mohamed, what can you say to us about that subject?
Well, in the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful, peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet and his companions, his family. I think it is our duty to remind generations about the history of our homeland, as you said. Every nation reminds its generations about their history, their victories during the history, their battles, war, how did they fight against enemies who wanted to oppress them. Even Al-Qur'an, the Quran, asks us to remind people. He said in the surah of Ibrahim, وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ, which means, and remind them about the days of Allah. The days of Allah during the history of nations are the days of victories. We have the religious days, religious occasions, and we have national occasions, right? Al-Quran asks us to remind our generations about our victorious days, the victories of our nation during history. This Independence Day did not come from nothing, right? This nation, or the Algerian people, suffered, as you said. The French colony celebrated its invasion after 100 years, after 1 century, in 1931.
1930, yeah.
1930, right? So they were celebrating 100 years or 1 century, right? They have oppressed the Algerian people. They have followed very high level of injustice, and different policies to control Algeria, to control Algerian people. The policy of hunger, siest tajweer, the policy of dividing people, siest tafriq, the policy of ignorance, tajheel also, right? Because any oppressor knows that the greatest enemy of oppression is knowledge, as Al-Kawakibi mentions in his book, famous book, طبائع الاستبداد ومصارع الاستعباد, the characteristics of dictatorship, very famous book. He mentioned, he said, Allah has created knowledge, وقد خلق الله العلم وضاحا للخير, to clarify the truth, to clarify what is good, وفضاحا للشر, and to reveal to people what is bad, what is wrong, what is injustice,
This is evil.
what is evil. Thank you. Right? So the French people knew that if they wanted to control this country, to stay here as they wanted, is to follow this kind of policies. Policy of ignorance, policy of anger, policy of dividing people, policy of ignorance, 4 kinds of policies to be able to settle here in this country. But Alhamdulillah, praise is due to Allah, right? Because our independence, our freedom, as Prophet Dr. Hashani mentioned, right, did not come from nothing. There was an oppression, and then there was a preparation also. The Algerian people prepared for that, right? And the Algerian people possessed the strongest factor of liberation, which is religion, ad-din, religion, as Malik bin Nabi mentions always in his writings, that one of the elements of strength in any nation is is religion, al-fikra diniya, as he calls it, right? So when we talk about this independence, we are reminding our generations about our victorious days. This victory did not come just like that. We woke up one day and we found ourselves free. But generations by generations, this nation was preparing to reach and to achieve the day of independence, which is the 5th of July 1962.
I can add to you, Dr. Belghit, when you were talking about the ignorance and talking about al-jahl, what the colonialism used to do, I will, if we can do that, we will go back to the first centuries, when all the prophets comes to liberate or make people free from ibadat al-awthan. We're talking about da'wat al-anbiya min qabl, before. We talk about prophets, they all start from their place, from their homeland, from their people, from their nations. Any one of them you can take here and you will find saying, starting from Nuh alayhi salam, inna arsalna Nuhan ila qawmihi an anzir qawmaka. Every one of the prophet has started a da'wah from his nations, from his people. Take Ibrahim alayhi salam, we take all the prophets, as you said, generation by generation. Now, what we should do is to make our generations...
Maybe, if you don't mind, maybe the clearest text that Allah has sent prophets to free people is the text of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, when he asked Pharaoh to free Bani Israel, the children of Israel, to follow him. فَأَرْسِلْ مَعِي بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ وَلَا تُعَذِّبُهُمْ. Do not torture those people. Let them follow me, or to follow me, or to go with me. Moses came to free the children of Israel from the dictatorship of Pharaoh, of Pharaoh, right? This is the clearest text. Maybe.
I mean, yeah.
You can carry on.
I want to say that every one of us has to start from his nations. You don't go away and you just let the one who is next to you. No, you have to start from the one who is next to you. For this reason, when we talk about that, I just want to talk about our youth today. They have to know about the this 5th of July, this Independence Day. Maybe we'll talk about it next one. I mean,
later on.
The next subject. But now, talking about nationalism, it is wide. It is very wide. Do you want to?
Yes, I think Islam considers person who defends his country as a martyr. And for us, it's enough, right? When you are considered as a noble person and a martyr, shaheed, that's really maybe the highest level a person can reach, right? We know that there are 4 levels of perfection, of human perfection: prophecy, martyr, dying as a martyr, or being righteous, الإنسان الصالح. فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين, righteous. These are the 4 levels of human perfection, right? The highest level a person can reach. One of them is dying as a martyr, right? And Allah, the Almighty, in the Holy Quran mentions that a person who defends his dignity or his property or his country is a martyr. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. As the Quran mentions, do not consider people who die defending their right cause in the way of Allah. They are only martyrs, right? And they are alive in the hereafter, in the paradise, right?
Inshallah. Professor Mimouni, I can see you wanna participate.
Yes, I would like to return to the fact that Dr. Hashani mentioned. He started with the inception of the Algerian state in Algeria as a small imara at the time, maybe, but the territory hugely or globally it was Algeria on the other country, which east and west. But what I would like to add something. When we can mention one of our famous personality in Algeria. When we were young in the television, we saw Algerian television, where I remember Professor Marhoum, Professor Moulud Qasim, Nait Belqasim. He was strong in his nationality, in Islam. I remember he brought on, historians know this, he brought us the convention that the Algerian state, at that time the Algerian freed from the Ottoman Empire at that time, were made conventions, political conventions with America. And when you make conventions, when you make relations, diplomatic relations, that means a state. Then the Algerian fighting, it was for homeland, but at the same time, we say that the 5th of July, as you said, is the restoration of the state. And the French used to say, colonization said, we are a bundle of disseminated tribes that are fighting each other. You see that they are. And the Professor Hashani, he was stopped. He would, I think you were speaking about Emir Abdel Qadir or something like that.
Yes, I cited some of the things, but the list is so long. You know,
he was speaking about the religious personnel.
Exactly.
That religious personnel, you see. But what I just want to say, that maybe I step forward, is that the هذه المقاومات الشعبية, the resistance, popular resistance, they ended. They were led by religious personnel, maybe because the essential cultural unit, it was a cultural unit which was the Zawaya, the religious leader. There is nobility, social nobility, and religious existence or religious knowledge. And at that time, after that, we know all in history that the resistance led to an end. And one of the things which France made is banishment. They sent for example, to New Caledonia, the Algerians of Al-Muqrani وبوبغلا إلى غير ذلك. And أترحم أيضا, it's good to bring in your program. Remember, great Algerian people. Tawti Siddiq, rahimahullah, is the one who discovered them. And he saw them in the 70s or 80s, and he brought them. And after that, they were on the light in New Caledonia, the Algerian data. Some returned on that, you see. Then banishment, something like that. But at the turn of the century, the Algerian, maybe of our forefathers, they had the intelligence to use the new political tools that were existing at that time. They changed. Yani Allah Ta'ala showed them, or they at least they used, what are they? Inspired them, that's it. They, for example, they used somewhere in the immigration, they used parties. L'Étoile Nord-Africaine, نجم شمال إفريقيا. Okay? PPR, which PPR, but the nationalist trend, and they used parties, they used the press, they used to fight the colonialism, and there were different tendencies, political tendencies.
Yeah, it was the modern tools of fighting.
Modern tools. The press,
yeah,
the Algerian press, they would stop on the arrest a journalist, he would be another journal that appears in Arabic and in French, both. And at that time, we have to say that there were, it's bicephal, or there are two, there is political and there was religious, Jamiat al-Ulama, and there were different tendencies. But at that time, they didn't neglect the Islamic part. For example, in the project of the Étoile Nord-Africaine, the Islamic personality, Arab Islamic personality was existing in the project in every parties, mainly, not let out without mentioning Jamiat Ulama, which is the main project of
when we talk about the what you are talking about, we can talk about the Bayan November, the Inda. He showed to us, and it appeared clearly that religion is the most interesting or most the biggest part.
I think it's very clear, with your permission, Prof. It's very clear that Islam is the root of any kind of freedom or liberation. And we have maybe as a witness one of the German writers, who is Paul Smith, as I have learned from my teacher, the Professor Dr. Al-Hadi Al-Hassani, may Allah give him a long life. Paul Smith said, the origin of all revolutions of freedom in the Muslim country begins from the mosques. If we know that Islam considers the one who defends his country as a martyr, right? I think there was nothing to say after that, right? That's why, if you don't mind, Prof, I'm so sorry, please.
I prefer
yes,
that.
I just sometimes I take a word and just say it. I would like to say that no matter what people think, because some people try to catalog you and put you in this and that.
Yes.
But the colonialism, you said before the French people, let's not say the French people, say the French colonialism. Because let's dissociate French people. I'm not defending French people, but the French
to be more accurate.
Okay, accurate. Now we are speaking what the bad things that have been done were not done by French people as such,
yes, sure,
but the system.
Sure, I agree with you.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I have always wanted to make understood. No matter what are your political, religious, whatever orientation.
Whatever is your
when Cardinal Lavigny came here, the first thing he did was trying to take people from their religion,
religious conviction,
and this is it up to now, huh? And in the Great Kabiri, do you know that what are the name that were given at that time, because the French tried to put the spot on the Kabiri? Most of the name were Fatima Zuhra and Muhammad al-Arbi. That means that people, like you said, the Islam was, and will always be the cement that keeps us. We all speak different languages. Even we all know now all this problem about this language, this dialect, so on and so on.
There is a diversity.
Diversity. I'm
Yes.
not being, but 100%, perhaps 1% of which are, of course, to be respected in their beliefs, but not almost 100% of Algerian are Muslim. This is the cement. I love this word and say this is the cement. It's cement that kept our society together. It is not our tribal belonging. It is not language. It is not a tradition.
Not a race,
but all people said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is the cement life we have to put. And also you spoke.
Yes, please.
Excuse me. You spoke about our youth. This is. We're not young anymore. So we speak about the youth of today. We have to put them in like you said, in their mind that this is did not come without
easily,
without
sacrifice.
We're speaking about 1.5 million martyrs, but I think there are a number that says that 10%, 10% of the Algerian population during the whole colonization, which is. Do you imagine 10% of the population? So we have to instill in this youth this love of their country, which has not come free, like you said, and also that they belong to Islam, which gives them all the right. Islam that have cemented the Algerian society, no matter what people say.
Now, you were talking about that, and I just remember something I did forget to say. Like if we were talking about the Abdulhamid bin Badis alayhi rahmatullah, is the person who loves the nations, who loves the country, and the proof of it, he did his sensibilizations to the youth people that time by building Madaris al-Qur'aniyya. When we talk about Madaris al-Qur'an, and even when you talk about the nasheed that he said, or the shair that he said, the poem that he said, he was talking about that people in the This is why, because that time he found that this is the main things to do.
Maybe before Ibn Badis, if we refer to the Prophet himself, when he migrated from Mecca to Medina, he was very disappointed that he left Mecca, because he was loving the sacred city of Mecca, right? And he mentioned that it's very disappointing to leave Mecca, where he lived more than 40 years.
Right? This is another proof.
Yes.
Of
so I think
your homeland, you have to like your homeland, love it.
Loving your country is a part of our identity, That means if you do not love your country, you are denying your identity itself. The scholars say that identity got 5 components. One is a common geographical historical area. 2, a common historical memory. A common popular culture. 4th, a common chart of duties and rights. 5th, a common economic system. That means any identity has to possess those 5 elements, components, which are very important. So when you love your country, is a part of your identity. The one who doesn't love his country, who doesn't sacrifice his life for his people, I think he is denying that he belongs to a nation, to his religion, to his religious convictions.
Yeah, talking about common, when you say common, I prefer it saying appurtenance of. For example, when we talk about appurtenance, it is الانتماء الجغرافي والانتماء الاقتصادي والانتماء الثقافي. All that appurtenance make you as a force, or make to you as a force that you will reinforce it or enhance it to live or to survive in the place that you are settling down.
Well,
Professor?
if we return before speaking about the youth, I just want to continue on about the similarity or the elements of conjunction between the nationalism and Islam. I said the parties fought about on the youth identity was related with the religion. We can say that at that time both Islam, the Islamic history, or national history, youth had a great part. We know that, for example, في إحدى الغزوات غزوات المؤتة على ما أظن زيد بن حارثة 17 years old was the head, appointed as the head of the army on recognition for his father's death and something like that. We know that all the leaders of revolution, of the Algerian revolutions, were young at that time. We say الكشافة الإسلامية, which is another tenet of the thing. What I want to say, at the, you said about the بيان أول نوفمبر. بيان أول نوفمبر mentioned in its statements the restoration of the Algerian sovereignty, but in a new form, which is a state, a nation state. Nation state have, if you say the definition of nation state, is a community, as said Professor Dr. Belghit, is related with heart. It's a heart feeling of belonging, not race, not only language. It is mainly interests, affects, rights and duties. It is, and at that time there must be a policy that does give to all people their rights. At this we have to make in our history, that in memory, that colonization was an onslaught on every aspect. Then we have to return land to the poor, distribution of land. We have to recover our identity, language, religion. We have to make a great effort against illiteracy, as you said, the education system. We have to provide a health system that is up to the needs of the people. And in that time, then this is a new policy. This policy will mix between values, traditional values, but new economic, social policies. Then the relation between Islam and nationalism may be, maybe disturbed. It will not have the same form. You see, there will be, at that time, then, if we take of the youth, when we say, for example, nationalism or Islam, what is nationalism in the basis? It is a value, حب الوطن. يعني nationalism يعني as a love of homeland. The shuhada, they gave us the example to sacrifice for their homeland. Okay? But after that, we have to fulfill the needs of every person in the society. Fulfill the needs, make to set up policies. Policies may be adequate, they may have a setback, some certain policies. Alors, if the values of nationalism, there is adequation between the value itself and the practices after that, then the youth will adhere to the nationalism. But if there is a split, that is, the view of nationalism is in the history, is emotional, is in the history, but practices, they use nationalism, let's say, to gain, to have advantages, then the youth, which is deprived from this, might be away from this. This is the point. We have to return not only on the history, on the memory, but to satisfy the youth. Youth, of course, at that time, or youth, of course, has got also the state, the Algerian state, made enormous stages towards education, provide, but youth on the time being, some think that they are marginalized on certain aspects, particularly economic. They have got unemployment, they've got problems of expressing some of their needs, you see. Then we have to help them to reach this level of nationalism by practices and by showing the way, so that they are the future of the nation.
I think
But
this is
maybe
another
if you don't want-
another part of
Yes.
which is right, and
Yes.
as you mentioned.
Yeah, I think we need to support what our professor was saying just now. We need to reinstall the trust between the youth and their people, their nation, their country itself, right? Because when we decorate, we decorate for pleasure, it's insufficient, right? The Quran itself mentions how to preserve independence, how to protect this independence. Maybe for some people it appears that it is easy to reach the level of, to achieve independence. It appears, right? Even though it's very difficult, it is,
It is,
it's
yes,
a
because
sacrifice.
sometimes you do some
Huge.
things without
Yes.
knowing, and you put
the
your
Quran
nation in
itself,
problem.
I have two verses in the Holy Quran, one in Surah Al-Hajj, where Allah mentions, and they are those who, if we give them authority in the land, the four conditions to preserve independence: establish prayer,
Yeah.
أقاموا الصلاة، والذين إن مكناهم في الأرض. التمكين في الأرض itself means independence, means you have authority on the earth, on your land. وكذلك مكنا ليوسف في الأرض. Right? Establish prayer. Here it is a symbol of installing the worship program of the Islamic values themselves. أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة, give zakah, charity, means the financial program, the economic system, right, with justice and respect of human rights. Then, and enjoin what is right. وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. That means enjoying what is good and what is right in the society. This is the third condition. The fourth one is forbid what is wrong. وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. All what is munkar, what is wrong, what is evil, as Dr. Hashani mentioned, reminded me, what is evil, what is shar, right? They forbid it, they prohibit it. These are the four conditions if you want to protect your independence. Allah says in the Holy Quran.
Yeah,
The second verse is in Surah An-Nur, excuse me.
Yeah.
Allah has promised those among you who believe, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنكُمْ, and do righteous good deeds, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, that He will certainly grant them succession.
ليمكننا
Right? لَيُمَكِّنَنَّهُمْ لَيَسْتَخْلِفَنَّهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He will give you succession on this earth. You want independence? Get it. وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Allah is the one who helped our martyrs, our fathers, our ancestors to get our independence, our freedom. We should thank them, and we should thank Allah Ta'ala.
Of course.
وَلَئِنْ شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Right. In the earth, as He granted it to those before them. كَمَا اسْتَخْلَفَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ. Right? And that He will grant them the authority to practice their religion. وَلَا يُمَكِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ دِينَهُمْ الَّذِي ارْتَضَى لَهُمْ. When our fathers, our martyrs were fighting, they were fighting in the name of Allah, with Islam. They were believing either victory or dying as a martyr. Right? This is the promise. It is a covenant between us and Allah. We shouldn't betray this covenant. if we want to protect our independence.
And the reason-
ولا يمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم. Who choose for us Islam? Allah. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. ولا يمكنن لهم. هذه شروط التمكين. These are the conditions, the guarantees to preserve and protect independence, and that he will grant them the authority to practice ويعبدونني لا يشركون بي شيئا, to practice their religion, that which he has chosen for them, Islam, and he will surely give them in exchange a safe security. ولا يبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا, safe security after their fear. In those two verses, Allah mentions with a clear text how to preserve, how to protect this independence, and to carry on with the next generations, right, to be loyal and fidel to our fathers and our ancestors.
Now, you know, when you were talking, we say, you see the verses, the first verse that you said,
Yes.
you were talking about the Iqamat Salat, etc. Now, there are a lot of people, when you say that verse, you say, what is the link between this and this? But the real link or the real attachment is when you do Salat, Iqamat Salat, the people do it all together in the same
Iqamat
time.
Salat means many things, brother.
Yeah.
Adhan is a symbol.
No,
in
the
keep the adhan, as Dr. Hashani highlighted about the mosque, the great mosque of the new great mosque, inshallah. We will have a long life to pray there, inshallah. That means
Is
the
that
symbol
mosque?
of adhan in this country, the symbol of a mosque, right? Because French colonialism wanted to install another Christianity or Christianism or another religion in this country to lead this people.
Let me
yes,
just because you
Please.
said, in fact, this is one of the greatest, and it's we spoke about symbolistic, the symbolistic of
Yes.
bringing back the thing, but the great mosque of Algiers, like you said, inshallah, will
Pray.
this jaiha goes away, and we'll have inshallah
This pandemic,
to pray there was built. This is a great, and I'm very proud of this, of my country, that it was built on a neighborhood called La Vigerie, which is very, very, very symbolistic.
Cardinal.
Sure.
Cardinal La Vigerie,
Yes.
who did everything in the 19th century
To Christianize, if it is
deny
the right
Islam.
word, this country.
Alhamdulillah, 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 this great. I'm not speaking about what happened about it because people speak. This is Beit Allah. This is a place where Allah is worshipped. And Alhamdulillah, it's in Algeria, and it is built on a land called Cardinal, not Cardinal, but the neighborhood was called La Vigerie. Alhamdulillah.
You see,
This
even
is just thing.
even the place chosen, he chose the place which is front of the sea. Means when you get from the sea, from
In the
over the sea,
the entrance of Algeria,
the first
just
vision.
you come from
yeah.
the airport. I have seen many countries, they build a mosque closer to the airport to introduce the identity of the country for tourists who come from overseas, right?
And it's a great
Yes, I
achievement.
have seen
because
that in Malaysia, in Turkey, in many countries in the world.
I've got a questions to Shani, if you don't mind, of course.
Yes,
The
sure.
question is, you know, some people when you talk about the nationalism, etc., they just put it away, put it aside, and they say, okay, nationalism is something that Islam. But when I was reading one of the authors here, I was reading, he said the conflict of that, which is nationalism, when you take in the other side, he will be against our religion. But when you put in a right side, he wouldn't be that. And this is my questions. What do you think about that people who thought that when you talk about nationalism, you are talking about something which is maybe forbidden, or maybe something like not good?
I do not pretend
Well,
to be.
I'm not saying.
No, I know, to be an icon of nationalism, but I don't see personally. وما أوتيت من العلم إلا قليلا. I don't see what is the تضاد, what is the problem between nationalism and Islam. I don't see what it is. Perhaps some people say because Islam is trans boundaries. I mean, it goes over. Okay, but now we have countries. I mean, my love of my country, my love of my land, my love of my people, my love of the surrounding that I have been brought up since now since I was born, does not preclude me from having a relation with my. As a matter of fact, it imbricates itself in it. This is, Algeria is a Muslim country, and loving my country is loving my religion, and loving my religion is loving my country. حب الوطن من الإيمان. Although some people say this is a
but the meaning of what you said is right when you say that. For example, if I give the two verses, the first one from Baqarah, Surah Al-Baqarah, and the second one is from the Surah of Ibrahim. The ayah was saying, رَبِّ جَعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا. When we talk about that, وَارْزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِهِ. When you read the verse, you will find that the link of Balad Aman is the Iman.
Yes, could be, yes.
This is why I'm saying, we say, رَبِّ جَعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا, means Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was talking about the place that where he was born, where he was settling down there. For this reason, he asked Allah, and he prayed Allah saying, أَجْعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا. And the other verse, another verse, which is Surah Ukhra, Surah Al-Baqarah, he said, رَبِّ جَعَلْ هَذَا الْبَلَدَ آمِنًا وَاجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَّ أَن نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ.
Surah Ibrahim.
When we talk about أن نعبد الأصنام, this is pure prayer. Pure prayer means pure اعتقاد, beliefs. And because when we talk about nationalism, we talk about belief. You believe on the place that you will be free to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. And this is why our Algerian people, without exceptions,
one thing, just
they
excuse me,
okay.
I just doesn't have anything to do, but I say to the youth who are now living in this country, no matter what all the problem, I always say something that Kennedy says: do not ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Give to your country, because this country has not come, like my brother Mohamed said, from nothing.
And this is what Ustad Belghit, Professor Dr. Belghit said when we were talking about this subject. He said, قول Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when he entered Islam.
In our civilization, we are taught to fulfill our duties before we ask for our rights.
Our rights, yeah.
In the beginning of Islam, people, when they were embracing Islam, Abu Bakr said to the Prophet when he embraced Islam, ما هو عملي? What is my duty?
What should I do?
He did not tell to the Prophet, oh Prophet, if I follow you, what are you going to give me? What are you going to provide for me? Now, in our civilization, this is maybe one of the differences between the Western civilization and the Islamic one, right? In the Western, maybe there were movements of rights, human rights, women rights, animals rights, cats rights, etc. In the Islamic civilizations, if